Most parents would do anything to protect their children from physical pain, yet sometimes all they can do is stand by helplessly. The young woman in our next story experiences pain that is so overwhelming and prolonged that she and her family can only pray for a miracle. It was December 24th, 1993, and 14-year-old Tricia Zemba decided to spend part of the day before Christmas outdoors, horseback riding. It was one of many activities that she enjoyed, and she appreciated the special relationship that can develop between a horse and its rider.
It's just a feeling of union. It's a feeling of being one with another living creature, and knowing that there's a certain friendship between you and the animal. There has to be, for you to be able to ride and do it successfully.
And Tricia was an accomplished rider who had won many awards in amateur riding contests. Today she was taking her mother's horse, Sly, out on the trails near the ranch in Phoenix, Arizona.
Sly was extremely gentle. He was a good horse. For the most part, he was very calm. He was an excellent trail rider because he just liked plodding along and going at his own slow pace. He had the speed and the power. He just chose not to use it most of the time.
But that day, as Tricia and Sly headed out on the bridle path, something spooked the horse and he took off running. The power and speed of this ex-racehorse was overwhelming. All of Sly's 1,200 pounds fell on top of Tricia. They both lay there stunned.
And for a horse to get up, they can't just stand up. So he had to use his full weight and push down on that hip and that leg and push himself up using my body as a kind of a cushion against the ground.
Once the frightened horse was on his feet, Tricia was able to get up. And to her amazement, she didn't seem seriously injured.
I was sore, I was bruised, and that was the extent of it.
Oh, I know what that is.
Even so, the next day on Christmas, Tricia was taking it easy, and her parents, Joel and Mary Jane Zemba, were only mildly concerned.
It was a pretty typical Christmas morning, my little boy getting up early. Tricia came out and joined us, but she was stiff and sore.
I got you again.
Yeah, that was Tricia's
idea. Easy hug.
You're so well. Woo! She kept telling us she was all right. She stayed on the couch, but we had Christmas morning. They opened the gifts, except she was sore.
Not in a million years did I think what eventually happened could happen, or was going to.
A little more than a week later, Tricia was taking a bath.
I remember going to stand up and not making it. I remember landing with a thump in the bathroom, and that's it.
Tricia! So I went in and I found her slumped across the side of the tub. And I tried to get her up. There was no response. She wasn't answering me. You know, I didn't know how she'd hit her head, exactly what had happened to her.
Tricia finally came to, but she developed excruciating pain in her left leg and lower back, pain that would not go away. After weeks of doctor's visits with no answers, she was rushed to the hospital.
The pain was horrible. I remember being wheeled into the hospital and how painful that was, because when they were rolling me along on the gurney, I could feel the vibrations from their hands touching the gurney, and then the vibrations from it rolling over the floor, and how much that increased the pain and how much more excruciating it made it.
Tricia was diagnosed with a rare nervous disorder possibly triggered when her horse fell on her. It's called reflex sympathetic dystrophy, or RSD. Dr. Marilyn Wells, who was familiar with this strange condition, was called in.
The brain sets up abnormal circuits from an injury, and it can be a very mild injury. Anything from a sprained ankle to a slightly fractured toe. And for some reason, we don't really know why yet, the brain, instead of sending out signals to kind of decrease the pain, sends out signals that actually increase the intensity of the pain.
And the pain never stops. Eating and sleeping become impossible. Even large doses of painkillers cannot provide relief. the medical prognosis is grim.
These patients were basically left with living on strong pain medications for the rest of their lives. And this is why there's a rather high suicide rate amongst RSD patients.
According to Dr. Wells, Tricia had the worst case of RSD she'd ever seen. This is actual footage of Tricia in her hospital bed. Not even a powerful painkiller like morphine was able to stop her nerves from sending pain signals when no pain should be felt.
It was horrible to see my daughter in this kind of pain. I was totally helpless to help her. I was supposed to take care of her, and I couldn't. I couldn't make it go away.
I think it's the worst thing you can go through is to watch your child in pain and to be totally helpless, to be just nothing you can do for her.
Meanwhile, Tricia's team of doctors were running out of answers.
They had tried everything possible, including running anesthetic directly into her spinal column, and it wasn't touching the pain.
The doctors prepared Tricia's parents for the worst.
I don't really know how to tell you guys.
They believed that there was no hope, that this was going to continue on. He said we needed to think about institutionalization, and that we needed to think about our son and our own lives, and that they would take care of Tricia.
Even Dr. Wells had trouble accepting the inevitable.
As a trained medical person, you force yourself to do it. But inside, I felt like a hole was being eaten through me of her pain.
Christmas Eve, 1993. 14-year-old Tricia Zemba and her mother's horse Sly are out riding the trails when something spooks the horse. The frightened animal loses its footing and it falls, landing on top of her. A few weeks later, Tricia is rushed to the hospital, suffering from increasing and uncontrollable pain. Eventually, she's diagnosed with RSD, a rare and untreatable nerve condition. And now, all Tricia is able to do is lie in bed and suffer excruciating pain day and night. Even the touch of cloth on her skin is enough to send her screaming. Weeks turn into months as Tricia remains confined to her hospital bed, racked with pain. And then one night at about 3 a.m., with her body once again contorting in anguish, Tricia begins to pray.
I wasn't praying, you know, oh God, please make me better. I think I was just praying in general.
Suddenly, the pain began to disappear. Slowly and steadily, as a warm, comforting feeling swept over her body.
It slipped down my body and slipped and slipped and slipped farther down. And I felt it go all the way down my left leg. And then I felt it exit through my toes. And there's no way to describe it other than that. It exited, it left my body. And I heard very, very quietly, almost to the point where I couldn't hear it, get up. And at that point, I really thought I had flipped. I didn't think there was any way that this was truly happening. And so I prayed, you know, if that's you, God, I need more confirmation. And I heard louder and more clearly and much more authoritatively, get up. And I set my feet down on the ground, and when I set my feet down on the ground, I didn't have any pain anywhere in my body. My whole body was pain-free.
She stood there for a moment, not daring to believe, and then walked out of her room and down the hall. The night shift nurse on duty was the first to see Tricia walking, and she was in total shock.
It's amazing to me that she didn't just pass out and fall on the floor, because she just looked like she'd seen a ghost. She couldn't believe it.
What are you doing out of bed?
She knew that I shouldn't be able to do that. She knew that the RSD should still be controlling my life, and it obviously wasn't.
At 4 a.m. that morning, Tricia started making phone calls.
You know, calling doctors, calling my family, and, you know, going, come to the hospital, I'm fine. You know, I've been healed, it's a miracle.
I didn't believe it. I did believe it, but I said to her, are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure, I'm healed, I'm fine, come.
We all piled in a car and drove down to the hospital. And sure enough, we walked into the hospital room, and there was Tricia standing at the end of her bed, completely fine.
Dr. Wells reviewed Tricia's x-rays before and after her recovery and discovered that not one trace of what had caused her condition remained.
In my experience, in my knowledge of RSD, there has never been a spontaneous remission. In other words, just symptoms vanishing like that in the history of medicine. Deep inside, I think most physicians understand the presence of the spiritual in this world, even though we have to look at it through scientific microscopes, if you will.
Doctors cautioned Tricia that the syndrome could return as mysteriously as it had disappeared. But today, 5 years after its onset, Tricia is living a full, active life and has absolutely no recurring symptoms.
Every morning when I wake up, I can't take for granted that I'm able to get up and walk out of that bed, because I know what it's like not to be able to do that. I was given such a gift that I don't understand why I would be chosen to give that gift. You know, I'm not perfect, I'm not holy, I'm not some saint, I'm just the everyday person. And it's amazing to me that God would choose to touch my life in such a dramatic way, to choose to speak to me.